Hey guys, so we're starting a new lesson today. We finished topic 15 talking about volumes. So now we're going to transition to something pretty different. We're going to be talking about coordinate geometry. So we're going to be looking at coordinate grids, we're going to be looking at ordered pairs, and we're going to be able to plot points on a graph. Okay, so that's what our focus is going to be for topic 16. And today we're going to be looking at what ordered pairs are. So before we begin, please make sure that you have your notebooks ready to take notes. There's some vocabulary that you need to know in order to understand what these grids are, what these points are on the graph. So I want you to follow along with your notebooks. And if you need me to pause to write down notes, go ahead and pause the video whenever it's convenient for you so that you can write down all the information. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that I want you to know is that when you have a graph, when you have something that looks like this, okay, this in particular is called a coordinate grid, because on this grid is where we are going to put points that are called coordinates, okay? And it depends on where exactly that point is on the graph. So there is an x-axis and a y-axis. If you notice these lines, okay, this is where the grid starts. And it goes on forever. If you notice the little arrows, that means that it can continue on forever. So this one on the bottom is called your x-axis. And there's a little x to give you a hint right there. So that x-axis is always going to be horizontal. It's always going to be this way. And that shows you where the point on the grid is on the x-axis. Okay, so going from left to right, that's where that point is on the grid. And we're going to go through some examples in a little bit so you understand what that means. On the opposite side, we have the y-axis. And here, it also goes on forever. And it also has a little hint right here. So there's your y-axis. And y goes vertical. So that means it goes up and down. So wherever your point is on the grid is, wherever it lands up and down on the grid is where it lands on the y-axis. There is an origin. And if you think about the word origin, it kind of means like the beginning or the start of something. So the origin is where this y and this x-axis meet. So these lines are not parallel. When they meet at the origin, and this origin is shown in an ordered pair called 0, 0. Okay, so if you notice that when we have this point on the graph, let me do it in a different color so you can see. I'll do it in purple. So when you have that point on the graph, you're saying that that point lands when x is 0 and when y is also 0. And that's just called your origin. So your origin will always be 0, 0. Okay? Let's go through some more information so that you can understand a little bit more. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, I mentioned something called an ordered pair. So ordered pairs are when you see points on a graph, okay, when you're graphing something out and these little points are on there, all of these are points on a grid but can be shown as an ordered pair. When we talk about it in this, in terms like these, okay, when we have it in parentheses with a comma, that's very, very important. It has to have parentheses. Kind of to show that that one point is this. Okay, so it's got to have parentheses and it's got to have a comma to separate the x and the y. So like it says here, the first number in the ordered pair is always the x coordinate. It's the number that's on the x-axis, okay? The second number in the ordered pair is the y coordinate. So it's the number that goes up and down. I'm going to show you this example. So let's say this is point A. In point A, our x, you have to look at where this point lands on your x. So if you put little ticks like this on your x, it might help you. So this point landed when x is 1. So you would put a 1 first, and then you would do the same thing on the y. So where does it land on the y? All these little ticks are going to help you. So if you notice here, it also is when y is 1. Okay, let's try, let me see, let's do this one so that you can see different numbers. Let's say this is B. So you're going to look on the x-axis and the y-axis. So you have to look at where the point is, and then you can go down and say, oh, well, the 12 is the x, and then this way it lands on the 4. Okay, so your ordered pair is 12 and 4, and that's your answer. Okay, just that. So you have to make sure it's inside parentheses and the x is in 1, separated by a comma from the y. Okay, let's do some more examples so that you can see. So in your homework, you're going to see both where you have to put the point on the grid and also where you have to identify what the point is, okay? So you also have to make sure you look at the letter carefully, because that kind of determines how you're going to write the point on there, because we don't want to just put random points and then you don't really know what that point is. We want to be kind of neat and precise and accurate in our answers. So we're going to label our ordered pairs on the grid with these corresponding letters. So for example, this one. Our ordered pair is 1 and 3. Our x is 1, our 3 is our y. Okay, and this ordered pair is called A. So the first thing you're going to do, you know that this first number is your x and the second number is your y. So you're going to look for 1 on the x. Remember, your x is horizontal. So wherever x is 1, okay, you're going to start there. And then the 3 means that you're going to go up to the y on 3 times. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and this point is going to be A. So everything else that we did, like the work that we showed, is not going to be part of your grid, okay? So here, that A shows that x is 1 and y is 3. I don't know why my color changed. Okay, now let's try point B. So point B, if you notice, is 0, 0. That's also called our origin. So when x is 0 and y is 0, is this point right here. And it's important for you to write down that letter because we're saying 0, 0 is this point right here in B. Okay, now let's look at C. When x is 4, y is 2. So we'll look for x as 4, which is here. Y is 2 here. And where the 2 meet is where you're going to put the point. Okay, so this would be called C, because here it shows that x is 4 and y is C. Okay, and remember that extra work that we do on the sides is not going to be part of our answer. It's kind of important in this case to be very precise. So if you're writing in a lined paper notebook, please make sure that your squares are really neat, your grids are really neat, because it is more, it's actually better to do it on graph paper so you have very accurate points, okay? Your book will have a what's it called? A coordinate grid for you already, so you don't really need to get graph paper if you don't have any. But just for future reference, it's always better to do this on graph paper, okay? So now let's look at D. D is 1 and 4. So when x is 1, y is 4. So we'll look for x is 1, which is here, and y is 4. So where the two meet is where you're going to put your point. Okay. The next one is E. So here, E, x is 5 and y is 3. So we look for 5 on the x, y is 3, and the 2 points meet here, and we're going to label it. Okay. This one, F, x is 2 and y is 2. So you just have to look for the same number on both, and you would plot your point there. Make sure to label it. Okay, so when you have zeros in your x or your y, like in G or I, it's really important that you pay attention to what it's actually asking you. So it can get a little bit tricky. Let me erase these first. Okay, so here it's saying the x is going to be a 0 and the y is going to be a 3. So on the x axis, you're not going to really move anywhere because the x would be on this line. You will go up to the 3 on the y, however. So x is 0 here and y is 3 here. So the line is going to be on this point. The point is going to be on this line, sorry. So this would be labeled G. I'll make sure to erase all the little points on the side. Okay, so for J, you're going to look for x as 5, which is right here, and j as 4, which is here. The 2 points meet right here, and this would be called J. And again, for this last one, just make sure to look at what it's asking. X is 4 and y is 0. So you're going to look for x as 4, which is this one here, and y as 0, which is technically here. Okay? So they meet at this point, and this would be I. So x moved over to the 4, but the y didn't move at all because it's on 0. So you would just plot your point there where they meet. Okay? Now let's do the opposite way. Let's say we already have our points and we want to know what the ordered pair is. So I have all the letters already labeled for you. Now we just need to see what the ordered pair is. So we're going to make sure to write them in parentheses with a comma in between, and we'll make sure to put the x first and then y. Okay, so first let's identify where A is. A's point is right here. So we want to make sure to know where it landed on the x. Remember that the x goes this way, okay? And the y goes this way. So A is on the 6 for x. And if you go to the y, it's on the 9. So this would be your answer. Your ordered pair for A is 6 and 9. Oops. Okay. I'm going to erase this just to be a little bit more neat. I don't want the pencil. Okay. So next, let's do B. B is here. Okay, so in this one, and you don't have to do all of this extra work. You can just use your finger. You can eyeball it to see where it lands on the X. But because I'm not with you and I'm not showing you on the board, I kind of want to make sure to be very like accurate and kind of detailed in this. So for the B, it lands on 3 for X. Okay, so the 3 is going to go first. And then over here, it lands on the 5 for Y. So your ordered pair is 3 and 5. For C, it's over here in this point. And if you look at this one, it lands on 8. So it moved all the way to the 8 on the X. But it didn't go up at all. So when it doesn't go up and it's directly on the axis line, that's when you would get a 0. Okay? For D, D's up here. D moved 2 times. So it moved over once and twice on the X. But on the Y, it moved all the way to 13. So that would be your Y coordinate. Let me erase some of this stuff because it's messy. Oops, I erased F. Okay, F was supposed to be here. All right, now let's look at E. E is another one that's going to be on that X or on that access line. So if you notice, since it's right here on the line, on the access line, it didn't move at all on the X. So that means that the X is 0. It is on the 7 for Y, so the 7 would be the second term, okay? And finally for F, F is down here. It moved over 2 times, so it's on the 2 for X, and it's on the 1 for Y. Okay, I think that's all the examples I have for you. If you have any more questions, if you don't seem to understand, we can do this on Zoom individually. If you are watching this after we did our group Zoom, then and you still have questions, please let me know so that I can go over it with you before you do your homework. There is a Plickr, so please make sure to do that. And if you're watching this at 8 or 9 in the morning, I am going to go over just a little bit in our Zoom today on our weekly Zoom for your homerooms. But if you're watching it after, then you probably already saw that we went over it. But this kind of foundation lesson is really important to be able to do the next few lessons. So if you're not understanding this one yet, please let me know so I can help you more, okay? I have no problem going over with you guys as many times as you need to in order to understand it. And I really want you to understand this lesson because you're going to use a lot of this in 6th grade math. So you're going to see a lot of ordered pairs. You're going to see kind of like figuring out equations and things like that. So I really want you to know how to do this lesson so that you're ready for next year, okay? So your homework will be practice and reteaching 16-1. I uploaded some PDFs if you want to do them on there, or just send me pictures on your workbook. If you are doing it on the PDF, just be very careful because sometimes the answers shift when you submit. And some of you have mentioned that to me before, that the markings kind of like shift a little bit on the PDFs when you turn them in. So if that happens, your answers might be wrong for the plotting points because it might shift them a little bit. So just be careful. It might be a better idea to do it on your actual workbook just so that that doesn't happen to you. Okay, if you notice it happening a lot, then go ahead and just switch over to your workbook so you can do it on there. Then if you guys have any questions, again, let me know. I'll reach out to you and we'll work through it together. Okay? So hope this helped and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.